Hey YouTube, how you doing? Kevin here coming at you with another video. Okay, I've done a lot of videos on ignition systems, both point ignition and electronic ignition, and I still get asked a ton of questions. So I try to take these questions and I channel them into videos. And I did a couple on electronic ignitions. I did a couple on how to gap points and set points, and do the basic run through and testing of the ignition system. So I made the comment that I'm going to be using an iridium plug because I have no choice on my KE102 build. And the person said to me, how do you gap those? And do you need to gap them? Can you just take them out of the box and throw them in? And a lot of people do that. A lot of people will take a spark plug right out of the box and throw it right in the bike. And that is wrong. That is not what you're supposed to do. You have to gap the plug, and there are different ways of doing that. I also have a lot of people saying, oh, I used this socket and I broke my the white part off my spark plug. I want to call it the white part. You mean the porcelain. The white part in the spark plug is the porcelain part of the plug. And then I get a lot of people saying, I have no spark, and the bike was running fine, and then I replaced the spark plug, and I had spark again, and then the thing ran for a little bit, and I got so much, it's smoking crazy, and then the spark plug burnt out, so I keep losing my ignition coil. I have a 97 KE100, and I think my ignition coil is bad. And so I'm going to cover a lot of these things in here. And is there a tool I can use to check the spark? How do I do all this? Alright, so first thing we're going to talk about is spark plug gap. The spark plug gap is really, really important for the burn. It's set up for your ignition system. It's set up for your bike. Your bike is adjusted with this in mind. Okay, so on the KE100s, all of them, okay, your spark plug, your factory spark plug is supposed to be either a B8HS or a B8ES, okay, so it depends on what bike you have, the American or the UK. So for the for the US, I'm sorry, because that's what we are, would be the B8HS, okay, and the spark plug gap on this is, let's see, 24 to 28 thousandths of an inch, and 28 to 32 thousandths of an inch for all others. So depending upon what spark plug you're running in your bike, I'm going to throw this up on the screen here for you guys, so you guys can see this. Okay, right here, if you have a B8HS spark plug, your gap is going to be 24 to 28 thousandths. If you are running a B8ES, then it's going to be 28 to 32 thousandths. Okay? Keep that in mind. So, if you are running an iridium plug, which I am, and what do you call it there? What is the gap? Well, you really don't know what the gap is because this plug is not for this bike. So I am going to go with the mid-range of both of those and hit it with the 28. And because the 28, if you're running a platinum plug, it would be a 28 thousandths, because that is right in between the 24 to 28 and the 28 to 32. So that's going to be on the 28 thousandths is what I'd be putting my iridium plug to. Now, dragging, there's two different types of spark plug gappers. There's the wire type, which I love. This is more accurate, I feel. And then there's the stamped one where you put the spark plug in the gap, which I'll show you how to do that. I'll use an old plug for this. Okay, you basically stick your plug on here. Kind of, this gap is really close down, so start way at the beginning. And then basically you would run it up to 28 thousandths or wherever it would be on here. And then that's it. And then if it didn't, you'd tap it down a little bit and then re-gap. This goes on your keychain. Now these are good and they're bad. Okay. These are going to get you in the ballpark, but they're not 100% accurate because they're stamped. Okay. Second off, they're made for the keyring. So if you have these on your keyring, they're getting banged around a lot, chipped and banged and stepped on and thrown and all kinds of stuff. You throw your keys on the thing. So they take a different type of wear. There's also some of them have a little bit of like this one has deterioration right here. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. See if I can see that right there. Those little chips in the metal. That's going to change the gap. That's going to make it wider and not allow you to slide the plug on there as where it needs to be. Keep that in mind. These are really not that good. The best ones are the wire ones. And they have this. A lot of people don't even know what this is. I'm going to show you what this is. If you've ever seen these before, you probably don't know what they are. Unless you're a mechanic. A lot of people don't know what these are. This tool is what allows you, you're watching this, find out which one fits. You can open and close your gap with this tool. That's what that's for. And it has the bolt different size for the different size electrolyte. That won't fit on there, so you smooth out to the other side and then it will fit, and then you can adjust your gap with that way. Okay, so the spark plug gapping tool by professionals preferred would be the wire one. These are different thicknesses of wire, and they stay the same thickness. They don't change like the slide gappers do. Okay. Alright, so we got that part done. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about spark testers. There are two types of testers that, there's three types of testers you can use. One, you can take your old spark plug and put it in there, which is highly not recommended, and I'm going to explain to you why. The two types of spark plug testers that I use is the inline one, where this right here would light up orange every time it fires, and one end goes on your spark plug and the other end into your plug wire. And of course, when you buy these, they don't come with, you have to modify them. That's a nut with a bolt through it, so it fits into the plug wire. Okay. And the cool thing about this is you can actually start the engine and run it and watch the light flash. Pretty cool. The other style, which is this one right here, this is basically set to 18K. And basically you put your plug wire on the top and you clamp that onto a ground, and you'll actually see, I don't know if you can see it or not, there's a round like cylinder in there. You can see the spark jump to the outer parts of the spark out to that thing. A little difficult to use during the day, more of a nighttime thing, and it's pretty cool. You just clamp it onto your cooling fin, right onto your cylinder head. Set up like that, and then you put your spark plug wire on it, and then you can watch it spark. And of course your plug will be out, so you get a better kick on it. Where that one right there, you know, it's with the spark plug on, so that's running. This is non-running. Okay, we're moving right along. So, I also wanted to talk to you guys about the length of spark plugs and the types of spark plugs. Now, here's why. Well, I'll get into that in a second. There are a few different types of spark plugs. Okay, one is just a regular black. These I'm using the NGK because these are the ones that we typically use. This one right here is for the these spark plugs don't go to this motor. Okay, I'm just using them as examples. Okay, the black writing on here, see how it doesn't have the R on there on the lettering? That's because this is not a resistor plug. I'm going to show you guys, because I've said this in my video, you might have a resistor plug, and people are like, oh, how do I tell? Okay, here we go. See the blue writing with the letter R? That stands for resistor. That means this plug is a resistor plug. These are the plugs that I hate. This is an NGK, it's a regular standard average everyday plug. Great quality plug, but standard. This one right here is a resistor plug designed for certain ignition systems. Now, these other plugs you cannot use for test and spark. because you can plug this in to a good ignition system and not get a spark. And you're like, what? Yep, because there's what they call a resistor in here. And you can actually test it. So, this is a regular standard multimeter. And see the diode setting right there? And it beeps. So I'll put it right down to that. Boom. Oh, right there. Okay, so I have it on that setting right there for the resistor, for the diode. Now ready? I don't know if you guys can hear this or not. Hear that? Alright. So unfortunately I don't have a bad plug, but I'm going to simulate it, okay? So what you're going to do to test a resistor plug is really simple. Doesn't matter which one you use. Put it right here on the base, and then grab the tip. You should not hear this. Okay? If you hear this sound when you touch up here, your plug is bad. You probably have a great spark, but because of this plug, you don't. Okay? This is testing good. There is no short. Okay? Now what happens, especially in two-stroke engines? In a four-stroke engine, this is great. In a two-stroke engine, it's bad. Because we have oil in our engines that burn. So what happens is, oil gets up past the electrode. The resistor is right up in here, inside the plug. And that oil, that hot oil gets on the resistor and pops it. Poof! Blows it out. So with the high ignition, the wet oil, it pops it, and then it shorts it to ground. Your plug is grounded out, so you don't get a spark down here. It all happens inside here, and that's it. You're done. So people, oh, I need points, I need ignition coil, I need blah 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 blah. Nope. Try changing. If you have a blue plug that has the letter R on it, the resistor plug, change that first. Okay? Change that first. Always check your plug first. Go with the easiest things. Don't go right for the points. Don't go right for the ignition coil. The ignition coils on these bikes very, very rarely go bad. Okay? They're 6 volt. They're not high voltage in any way, stretch of the means. High voltage comes out of them. And they do go bad, but they're far and few. So, I'm going to talk to you guys. I showed you guys on one of my videos that if you have the blue plug on your wiring harness, you have electronic ignition. If you have the white plug, you have points ignition. Well, I'm going to show you how to check visually. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a visual coil. Okay? The big coil, like this. If your bike has this style coil, they come black too, but you'll see the bar that goes over them. Okay? If you have that big beastly coil, this is a regular points coil. Regular. There's nothing fancy about it. It's a standard run-of-the-mill. Wide mount is points. Okay? The wide mounts are points. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with these bikes, because that's very important. This type of connector right here, if you see how it's got the round terminal, that's a points terminal. Okay? That's just a regular standard points ignition coil. This coil, see how fat it is? This is a CDI coil and takes a spade connector. Okay? Now, you can't do the regular testing with these, so I'm not even going to get into that. However, these coils very rarely go bad either. Now, this is for a bike with CDI, a KE100 with a CD. This is a CDI. Okay? The CDI is built into the coil. There is no CDI box, there's no module, whatever you call it. It's in here. It's a transistor style ignition coil. Now, here's what I'm going to give you guys some special tips. They don't make an aftermarket performance CDI ignition coil. Okay, they don't. I have a few of these left over. that I keep for my bikes because all my bikes are converted over to electronic. However, there is another bike that has a very similar, and it does work, I have tested it, ignition CDI. And here's what it looks like. Okay, this is I'll go from the back sides right here. So it has the terminals on the back side as opposed to the front, but it hooks up the same way. Okay, it has the same bolt pattern, and you can see the coil comes out the bottom. Okay, other than that, they're basically the same ignition coil, same size. Okay, there's no difference in them. And this one's made by Nippon Denso. This one, I'm going to put up here, let me just clean off the number so you can see it. It's a Nippon Denso coil, which is top of the line. Probably better than the one that's on our bike's factory. Let's see if we can see that. Well, I'm going to read it off to you. It's 129000-0070. And it's a Nippon Denso. There we go. Yeah, there you go. Right there. Okay. This ignition coil is found on the Suzuki DS80s. Okay. It features the... Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead, use it. So... What? Okay, go sit on the potty. So, you can use this coil right here, and you will find it works just the same way. The exact same way as the factory coil. There's no change in that. Okay, so now we get that part done. Now let's talk about another thing. Let's talk about spark plug sockets, because I get a lot of people talking to me about I keep breaking my porcelain every time I use my regular socket set. Well, this is overkill. This is 7/8. This ain't the one. But these sockets, see how there's nothing in there? I don't know if you can see that. Let me get a flashlight. Let me get a flashlight here real quick. See how there's nothing in that socket? It's just hollow. Awesome, cool. Alright, go ahead, go play for right now, and I'll help you out in a minute. Okay, so there's nothing in that socket. So what happens is when you get your ratchet in there, and the spark plug's at a steep angle like this, it's just going to break the porcelain when you put pressure on it. So, they're not designed for that. The difference between a regular standard socket, and I know a lot of people, like, you're probably sitting at home going, oh, I knew that! I knew that! Well, there's a lot of people who watch these videos who do not know this, so that's who I'm talking to tonight. I'm talking to the person who doesn't know about these type of things. Okay, you'll notice on this spark plug socket, it's got a rubber boot. That rubber boot does two things. It cushions and protects the porcelain, and it holds the spark plug in. That's not coming out of there. Okay? How can you tell if it's worn? If you go to put the spark plug in and it comes right back out, then you need to replace the spark plug socket. The rubber is bad. Spark plug sockets come in many, many different configurations. Everything from really long ones, like used on the Fords, that have your ignition coils on cars. And they feature a nut style. You can put a nut, a wrench on it. This one's made by, let's see, chrome vanadium steel. This is a cheapie. I got a medium range one, which is Mac. Whoop, just dropped it on the floor. This one's made by Mac Tools. You know, it's got the rubber way up in there. They also make spark plug sockets with a swivel on it. This one's also a Mac. It's really who makes it. Just, you know, they got a swivel on it for different hard to reach places. Those are 5/8 plugs. I got spark plug sockets that are smaller than that. This one's a, what do you call it there, 5/8 plug for the little mini bike ones. You ever see a little mini bike plug? Looks like that, and then this is the spark plug socket for that. Okay, see how loose that is? It's actually a bad spark plug socket. The rubber is way up inside there, and it's worn out. That's why I showed you this. This actually gets retired into a regular socket. But watch. See that right there? You can see the rubber in there. I'll show you. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a rubber in there. See the rubber way up in there? And watch this. This is how you can tell a bad spark plug socket. You put the plug in, pull my hand out, falls right out. Bad plug socket. Okay? Chances are this has a very good probability of breaking a spark plug if put in at an angle. You can still use it if you're going straight down and you have a clear shot. But if you're at an angle, you could break the porcelain. And at that point, it's your own fault. 3/4 sockets. Some spark plugs, like on lawnmowers, take a 3/4, like the CJ7s. And then, of course, you got your speed wrenches. There's these two right here, do 5/8 and 13/16 sockets, plugs. And the 13/16 one does not have a rubber in it, but the 5/8 one does. So this one, the 13/16 is actually junk. But I have them over here to show you what they look like and how you can do it. Because you really don't need to tighten them any tighter than giving them a good old twist, Alright, so let's just oh yeah, and I got one more thing I want to talk to you about. I see a lot of people putting different spark plugs that don't even go to their bike in their bike. And I've pulled out some spark plugs that were just touching the piston, and I'm not even kidding you. Okay, it wouldn't run. I pulled out the spark plug, and the ground right here at the bottom is smacked up against the electrode. Okay, and that's because when it was going through the spark plug hole in the cylinder head, okay, it required a spark plug of this length, and when they did it, they put a spark plug of that length in, and then whacked it. See the difference? There's a 1/2 inch difference. So it went to start, and then boom, whack it. It's not good for the motor, and you can damage your piston, you can damage your threads, you can damage your cylinder head, you can damage a lot. Okay, it's not good for the wrist pin or anything like that. So, platinum plugs and iridium plugs, you're going to gap them with this tool right here. That way you can open it up. You never want to use a slide on an iridium plug. You can damage the plug. And I also, on one of my videos, on my generator video, a guy had sent me an email. He didn't comment, but he sent me an email. How did I check the RPMs? What was that tool that I used to do an RPM test? Okay, well, as a mechanic, yeah, I have different tools from different variable things. And this is the pulse tool that I use. It's for Husqvarna's. And basically you start the engine up, and you hold this next to the spark plug, and it'll read the RPMs right on the screen. Okay? It's about 90 bucks, but it's well worth it if it's in your pocket. And then you got this, for certain ones, you have this little piece right here on the side. And you're like, what the hell is that for? That's where you stick your wire through, and then you coil it around the spark plug for like 2 to 3 times, and it'll give you a reading. This will also give you the length of time it ran for. So it's just your RPMs. And now right there's the part number if you guys want to look one up. They're probably cheaper now when I bought it. This thing's not really focusing into. Well, there you go. So that's what the pulse engine tachometer. It's wireless. Like I said, you just hold it up to it and you'll get an RPM reading. And works very, very well, especially when you're trying to adjust your bike, get it to idle properly, and set everything up on it. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys one more time because I get a lot of people asking me, what are the benefits to having an electronic ignition over a, what do you call it there, a points ignition? Okay, so I'm going to go over this one more time with you guys because it's very important, and it's a very interesting concept, okay? The difference between points and electronic ignition is simple. Electronic ignition is more accurate. What do I mean by that? When you're revving your engine up and you're hitting 10, 11,000 RPM. The cam that drives your points, okay, on the points ignition, is going so fast. Instead of opening and closing the points, what it's doing, as opposed to opening and closing, like the rod that pushes up and down on it, okay, or in this case the cam, is going so fast that it's actually causing float because it's hitting it so fast and open, basically overextending the gap, and it's, we call it the changing the duration of spark, and you actually lose power when it does that. With this right here, it's accurate right through the entire power band. In fact, your power band is extended a little bit more with this. One of the other benefits is when you really got a really low idle and the engine's chugging, like when you're trying to, when you got your rear wheel in the mud and you're on a slight incline and you're trying to climb out of it and you got to let out the clutch a little bit and give it the throttle, but you don't want the tire to spin, okay? This right here will help you with that. It'll keep that engine running and keep it having maximum spark. Where the points one, when you lug the engine down too low, it just stops producing spark. It's that simple. And then it dies out, and you get to kick and restart it and everything else. Then now you're really in the throttle, and what takes the beat in your clutch? So we get a better power band, a smoother idle, a lower idle, a faster throttle response, less moving parts to fail, more reliability with a watertight seal. It's up higher, it's underneath the fuel tank, so if you get up to water that deep, you're going to die out anyway because you're going to drown the engine in water. And you can change out your spark plugs and run a better spark plug if you want to with an electronic ignition on these bikes. Keep in mind, they're 6-volt systems, they're not 12 volt. So it's not like you're running like on a points ignition. If it was 12 volt, it would have a little bit more current, a little bit more oomph. This one doesn't. This doesn't produce that type of power on the ignition system. So, you gotta run with what you got. Like I said, there's no CDI module, and I also want to address the eBay thing. Okay, on eBay, if you go on there and you type in KE100 electronic ignition coil, they're gonna pop up with 1,000 orange coils. They're bright orange. They look cool. They are just, and it says right on it for a CDI or points. Okay, those coils are only for points. They don't have the electronic parts components inside them. So when you're trying to get a electronic ignition coil for a CDI, the manufacturer thinks that it has, that the bike comes with a CDI module. It does not. It's built into your ignition coils or coil. So that coil will not work on your bike. Then it says on the coil that it works on 6 and 12 volt systems. It does not. It's a 12 volt coil. I don't know why it's on there like that, but it's false. I have one. They are great for scooters, but they are not for this bike. They will not work on this bike unless you convert it to 12 volt. That and keep the points. That's all that you're going to do with that. There is no pickup coil. There is no module for this. There is none of that type of stuff. We don't have all that extra wiring. It's a basic system. Okay. Now I'm gonna go grab something. I want to show you guys something real quick. I'll be right back. Don't step in that. Okay, so when I was going through the electronic ignition systems, trying to find out something that would work, trying to come up with an idea, a plan, something, anything is better than nothing. When I was trying to do that conversion for you guys, I came up with an ignition system, and it does not work. I tried it out. It was for 2 and 4 stroke engines, and I'm only telling you this, guys, because I did the agony of defeat. I figured I'd try it out and see if it would work on this, but this has its own power coil. So here it is. Okay, so you have your regular ignition, your regular coil that powers your points. I removed the points, and I tried putting on one of these little electronic ignition modules. Okay, and I'm sure a lot of you guys seen this for small engine equipment that had points. It gets rid of the points, and then it makes it electronic ignition. Okay, so I figured, hey, what the heck? I'll try eliminating it, but the only difference between those and this has a power coil, so it doesn't work. They are great systems. They work on a lot of electronic, on a lot of points, 2 strokes, to get rid of them. But I want to show you guys this too. This module is the same module inside, basic, the idea of it is inside your electronic ignition coils. But it won't work because of the way it's wired. There's a couple of other components in there. So, if you guys see those, they won't work. So remember, if you have the black wire, the black lettering on your sparky plug, you have a regular standard plug. If your plug has the letter R under the NGK, it's a resistor plug, and you can test it with a multimeter. If your plug looks like this, black with all this fancy writing, it says iridium, you have an iridium plug, which are resistor plugs, by the way. See what it says BR? The R is resistor, but they're not blue. And it's a mild resistor. And that's what the iridiums look like. It's like a platinum. And that's why you can't drag. See how small that is? Let me put something in the back of it. The electrode is so small on the iridiums. So you can't use a slide thing because you can damage them. So that's pretty much it for what I have. For the electronic ignitions, for the points ignition, how to gap them, how to tell if you get a spark plug socket or a regular conventional socket. Some tips and tricks. So make sure you get the proper plug for your bike, because you don't want the plug going too far down, and you don't want it not going far enough. If you have an iridium plug or a platinum plug, the wire gappers will work amazing for you. If you have a regular conventional plug, you can use this right here and you'll be alright. And you get these at any auto parts store. They're normally right on the counter, and there's a whole stack of them, and they, it's like $1. I must have 500,000 of these things kicking around. Not that I had $500,000. Some were given to me. And that's pretty much it. And another thing you guys may not know. Your bike's a Hemis. That's a hemispheric head. So, has it got a Hemi on it? Yes, it does. Most 2-strokes are Hemis. Unless they come at an angle. So, that's pretty much all I have, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I gave you guys the information on the replacement coil for the factory coil. They don't have a, there's no aftermarket coil for this bike. So, and sometimes you can't find the factory coil on eBay, or nobody's got this in stock. I'll just tell you right now, nobody's got this. This is a very hard coil to find. However, there's like 250,000 nip and Denzos. They're used on many different bikes. The Suzuki GS, not GS, the Suzuki, what do you call it there? DS 100s, DS 80s. They use them on the TC 100s. All the bikes that have the electronic ignition has this nip and Denso in it. And nip and Denso is a top of the line ignition coil. In fact, I'm going to be putting one of these on my KE102 build. Just because of it's an Ipendenzo, it's like the best in the world. So that's what I'm going with that. I love that product. It's a great product. And I don't know who makes the factory one. I'm assuming Kawasaki. Just because of there's no other numbers, there's no manufacturing on it. I mean, there's numbers on it. There's a IU 2306. But when you type that in, you can't find anything on that. There's no information on this thing. Who the hell knows? You know, you never know. So, if you need a coil, you can go with an Ipendenzo. You cannot put an Ipendenzo or electronic ignition coil on a points ignition. It will not work. You need the special coil down bottom. And it takes the place of this coil right here. It's longer and it picks up the pulse. And you'd also have to change your magneto flywheel to a 4 mag. Let me grab one of those. The electronic ignition magneto takes 4 magnets, and the regular points one takes 3. And that's pretty much it. You get the same output on them either way, but that's basically the to and fro on that one. And so, I mean, that's really pretty much what I have for you guys for tonight. Once again, that part for that ignition dead tester is the PET20. What do you call it? 302R. So PET302R, and it's a pulse tachometer. And like I said, you just hold it up to the coil wire, and it'll pick up the pulse and give you a tachometer reading. And that's pretty darn cool. And on my chainsaw, I had up to 13,000 RPM, so it works. And that's pretty much it. So, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you have any questions or comments. This video is not about testing except for the spark plug. This is basically a basics on spark plugs for the KE102 and different testing equipment that you can use for checking your spark, the proper gapping, and this is just basically going to go down as identification tips and tricks on this video. So that's how I'm going to label it. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe.